Hi, everybody. It's David, and I'm back with another episode of the Opposite of Cheating podcast. We're getting near the end of the season, so thank you all for hanging in with us. We're really excited to talk today with Jessa Kirk, who is the education specialist in the Office of Academic Integrity at UC Santa Cruz. It's a relatively new office. They're all relatively new in that position in the last few years and doing amazing things already. I just got back from Santa Cruz myself just a couple of weeks ago and had a chance to enjoy the hospitality and see all of the cool projects. So, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We're excited to talk with you. I'm excited to talk with you. They're excited to listen to you. So, why don't you tell us a little about yourself, about how you got to this spot, and about what the office is like at UC Santa Cruz?
Yeah, so my background is actually in K through 12 education. I got my master's degree in English literature and then taught English to grades 8 through 12 for 10 years at a small independent school in Santa Cruz. And then I spent 2 years as the academic dean for that same school. And I taught grades 8 through 12, but the school is for grades 6 through 12. So I was working closely with students from all of those grades, all of those ages, and that's when I started to get really interested in academic integrity and especially academic integrity policy. And then when I saw this job posted at UC Santa Cruz, I thought, this is everything that I'm getting really excited about. There's no way I'll get this job. It's too perfect. And I'm lucky enough that I got the job and now I'm at UCSC. So, in my role at UCSC, I get to develop the education offerings for students, primarily students that are found responsible for academic misconduct. And I get to lead our peer educator team, our student employees.
That's amazing. What kinds of education are you working on with them?
So we have a lot of the same names as what's happening at UC San Diego. I was really lucky to get to learn early from Trisha and her team and Allison in San Diego. So we have an integrity tutorial, which is an online learning module, and then a requirement for that is that students have to come into the office after they finish the online portion and meet with a peer educator in person. Then we have an integrity mentorship program, which is one-on-one meetings over the course of a quarter for students that are found responsible at what we call level two, so a little more serious. And that's
Hmm.
all with the peer educators. I designed all of those meetings and all the assignments, but the peer educators facilitate it completely. And then I just finished a week ago, the first integrity seminar for students who, under the previous policy, before this office was created, would have been suspended. And instead, we're able to offer them the chance to stay on campus, keep working toward their degree, and take the integrity seminar. And that will be in place of suspension.
That's great. Are you getting any sense of how they're responding to it?
Yeah, it's been really great. And it's always, you never know in working with students who have been responsible for misconduct how much they're saying what you want to hear. So putting that filter on it, we have been getting a lot of really good feedback from students. And I feel more confident that it's real when they give it directly to the peer educator.
Yeah.
Um, and they've been especially responding to the integrity mentorship because they see early that they're going to get to connect to a peer, someone else that's an undergraduate student that understands the stresses of being a banana slug, being in those 4 years of college. The seminar went really well. I always talk about when I got to go to San Diego and see their seminar, I got to see a version of the first meeting, the second meeting, the third, and the fourth. And I was so impressed just watching the students walk in for the first meeting and like their shoulders were up and they were tense and they were clutching their backpacks. And then I got to see the fourth meeting and they were so much more relaxed when they came in the room and they were joking with classmates and they were initiating conversation with their peer educators. And having that as the model was so helpful. And I was able to see that in my class too. So the last meeting, we have 5 meetings for our seminar, and the last meeting, there was a lot of laughter. A few students stayed after to thank me, which felt really good. yeah, it's I feel really lucky to be doing this work. It feels really good.
I'm so glad to hear that. I mean, imagine treating them like people and it actually
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
So when you talk to them, what do they say about about being found responsible or about the behavior that got them there in the first place?
Yeah, it's interesting. We in the seminar we had some students, and these were the ones that seemed more comfortable from the first day, that were very open about, yes, I absolutely cheated. I made a mistake. I'm ready to take accountability for it. And we had some that throughout the seminar would say things like, well, I'm getting good things out of this, but I still don't think I did anything wrong. Um, so not all of them are accepting of the fact that they've been found responsible. And I would just
Uh,
try to remind them that you're going to be here for these meetings. You can either be someone that is fighting this internally for every minute that we're together, or you can be someone that decides to try to get something out of it. And that choice
yep.
is up to you. I can't make you decide. And they seemed to be able to hear that. And I had a few tell me like, okay, I changed my mind. I'm going to try to get something out of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of them are just doing time, right?
Yeah. And I think it helps to acknowledge that. Like
Yeah,
I
it's
want this to be something that is a good moment in their life that they look back on and it feels like it made a change, but I can't make that happen if they're not willing to do some of that work.
and it gets back to why they're in school in the first place. If they see us just as an impediment to them getting the job they want, then you're just an advanced impediment.
Yes. Yeah. And we talked about that too. Why are they in school? Is it just to get through it and get a job? Is it because they really want to collect A's? Or is there some part of them that is trying to really engage with their subject matter, learn something about themselves? And then also reflecting on, okay, what is your reason? Do you feel good about that reason? Because some of them admit it. I just really need a job and I'm scared. That's fair, but is that going to get you through 4 years? Are you going to feel good about those 4 years? Are you going to feel good about the investment, not just of your money, but of your time?
Hmm. It's so tough for me to look at the students graduating in the last few years and see this job market and see this
Yeah.
economy and just the world that we live in is so different from the world I graduated in the in the 1900s. Um, I get it, right? They're scared because really smart people, really hardworking people are not getting jobs.
Yeah. And I remember my parents telling me similar things. I graduated in 2009 and I was being told, it wasn't like this when I graduated. It was easier to find a job. Good luck to you. This is a tough time. And it's changed so much since then.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I tell my students whenever possible to get some sort of credential working with people in person
Yes.
because knowledge jobs done on computers can be done by AI. Whether they should be is a totally different question, but if
Yeah.
it can be, it will be. So don't put any job that could be done from remotely could probably be done by a machine,
Yeah.
including mine, by the way. Um, So going back, you talked about your experience at an independent school. Can you remember the first time you started thinking about academic integrity as something more than something to deal with?
Yes. So I taught, um, I mentioned grades 8 through 12,
Hmm.
but mostly I taught ninth grade English, and then I would teach electives for juniors and seniors. And my first or second year of being full time, I had a ninth grade student who turned in a major assessment and it looked just like her brother's. And I
Hmm.
knew because we were a very small school and we knew a lot about our students, a lot about their backgrounds and family dynamics. I knew that this was a family that put a lot of pressure on their kids. They were really pushing for straight A pluses. There was anytime I took a point off, the student would be sent in to talk to me about why and could they get that point back. And so the way that I would have handled it with a different student, I had to really think about how am I going to handle it with this student? Because I know that I'm going to be talking to her, but I'm probably also going to be talking to her whole family. And
Okay, yeah.
just having to really slow down and be thoughtful about how do I explain why this is a problem? How do I explain why, yes, her brother turned it in and it was great, but she can't just turn in the same thing. I'm interested in her learning. Uh, and I felt really grateful that because we were a small school, that incident led to a number of meetings between me and the student. The assistant head was brought in because they were a family that we had a lot of conversations with. And through those meetings and a lot of conversation, we arrived at a solution that I felt good about, where I could continue having a relationship with that student in the class. I didn't feel like she was going to be shut down. She had another chance to show me her work. But it really made me think about how are schools doing this? Because not every school can have, I mean, hours of conversation to figure this
Yeah.
out. And also, I thought we need a better system because it kind of felt like we were inventing it as we were doing it. And we invented something
Yeah.
that worked for that moment, but we needed something that could be repeated. So
Yeah.
that stands out to me.
That seems like a great origin story. Did you build a system? Did you ultimately end up building a system when you were dean?
Yes, it took me, so that was early in my teaching, and then I just kept teaching. But as I was teaching, I would kind of keep a running tally of notes of things that I wanted to be better or more clear about how we handled academic misconduct. And then that was one of my big goals when I became academic dean, was getting that system established and getting it in the family handbook, because I'm a huge believer in everybody needs to know the rules if the rules are going to
Oh
be
yeah.
followed. So pushing it out to families and pushing it out to teachers in a way that they felt still respected. And it helped that I had been teaching alongside them for a decade. But that felt like a huge accomplishment in my time as dean, just getting that system in place and getting it written down.
What do you think is different between that K-12 environment and now a UC system school? I mean, aside from the obvious legal
Yeah,
differences.
it's interesting in some ways. It's so different. I mean, I'm coming from a very small school into the UC system, which feels massive to me.
Hmm.
Um, but the kinds of meetings that we're having with students and the kind of connection that we're trying to establish, I'm constantly going back to the work I did in K through 12 and finding students really craving that, especially students who are coming from a really big public high school and then coming here and they maybe have never had an experience where they're in a small classroom, maybe 12 to 15 people. They have a number of people that know their name or remembering details about them every day. And none of this is a dig on UC Santa Cruz or on the UC system. That's just not how we're set up to offer classes regularly.
Oh no, yeah.
Um, but certainly in the seminar, students were really responding to that of like, this is really nice. There's only this many people in the room. Like that's the person that's going to read all my work and give me written feedback every meeting. And I'm really glad that my K through 12 experience has been able to inform my work here in that way. And also just coming from an independent school, I had so much freedom in planning my classes. And Greer Murphy, the director of my office, has given me a lot of freedom in planning what I do for students here. And that's another reason I love my job, that I get to do that.
That's great. Yeah, having flexibility, especially within a system like the UC, must be really nice.
Yeah, yes, I know I'm lucky.
Yes, I think finding a good spot nowadays is harder and harder. So, do you notice any sort of fundamental developmental differences between the sorts of things you want to do with, say, eighth, ninth graders and then juniors, seniors in college?
Not really. And again, that's not in any way an insult. College students are at a totally different stage of life, and what they're able to do with academic work and executive functioning is often much more advanced. But I find myself approaching how I plan lessons and how I want to connect with them similarly. Um, One thing that I've been thinking a lot about, I spent a year talking to K through 12 educators, mostly classroom teachers, but some administrators, when I first started this job. And the thing that kept coming up again and again that they were noticing is just difficulty with basic communication.
Mm.
So written communication, but also things like a student being able to say, I don't have a pencil today. Can I borrow a pencil? And I was just hearing this again and again that teachers were observing students struggling with that. And that really informed how I planned um, the education for students found responsible for academic misconduct, really trying to make them communicate. So there's all these in-person meetings, but also having assignments where they have to, for example, go to a resource office on campus in person. Even if that
Oh yeah.
office has Zoom appointments, I say you have to go there, talk to a human, or they have to have an academic integrity conversation. So they have to meet with someone and talk just like we're talking now and record it.
Hmm.
And I've been feeling really good about that because I know that we're just going to keep getting those students in higher ed from K through 12. So as much as I
Oh
can stay
yeah.
connected to K through 12 and hear what's happening, the more I can prepare for the students that we're going to get.
I'm really interested to see if it's a cohort effect from the COVID kids or whether we're seeing like a permanent change in the way people communicate.
Yeah, I think COVID jump-started the problem, but since then, we've all gotten so used to being on devices all the time.
Hmm.
And now that in person is an option again, so many of us forget that it's an option. I mean, even just scheduling meetings on campus, I will automatically get a Zoom link, and often I will write back and say, "Can I come to your office? Like I'm happy to hike there. UCSC is a gorgeous campus, any excuse to get outside." And some people aren't ready for that. And I get sometimes that's just the most accessible choice. I'm grateful for Zoom.
Yep.
But if we're struggling with it, the students that grew up with it and spent a year or more fully online are going to continue to struggle with it.
And then you throw in the fact that so many of them were raised on Chromebooks as opposed to real computers, and you have a whole other set of
Yes.
problems because they don't actually, we act like they're digital natives, but they don't actually understand how computers work in a lot of cases.
Yes. And for anyone that wants to know about what it's like to work with students who are used to Chromebooks, talk to any high school, public high school librarian,
Oh, I
or a
imagine.
teacher. They're worried.
Yeah, especially if the goal is to make them tech literate through use of technology, it's actually doing the opposite.
And for so many schools, the students got used to the Chromebooks being supplied. And so there's also many students are struggling with like, what even is the value of a computer? It's become like scratch paper. They just think they're going to get one if this one breaks. So that's a separate
Oh,
thing. But if you want to hear a rant from anyone in K through 12, just say Chromebook.
oh, okay. Well, actually, I don't. So I think now I know what to avoid.
Now
So
you
that'll
know
be
what to
good.
not talk about.
So, well, let's talk about the opposite of cheating for a second. I know that you read the book, and I guess the question I would ask is, so long as we're talking, yeah, with post-it notes, that's so gratifying.
Yes.
Um, I know you're working in higher ed now, but before we get to what you found useful there, what do you think that the folks in the K-12 domain might find useful, and where do you think we might want to make changes if we were to do something like that?
Mhm. I will just say I already have recommended the opposite of cheating to all of my former colleagues that are still in K through 12. I think as is, it's so useful. Um, and what I really appreciated reading it is the clear respect that you and Trisha have for people that are in the classroom, which can be missing from a lot of the books that I was asked to read when I was a daily classroom teacher. It felt like someone was telling me how to run my classroom. And I was always like, are you in a classroom? So I think the points about, I'm going to go back through because I have it heavily annotated,
Mm.
um, about connecting with students, um, like making the most of class time, being prepared. I think making sure that what you say in your syllabus you actually follow through on. The point
Mm,
about um, having you might think that you're being kind by bending the rules for a student when actually that's modeling something that you don't want your students to do is
oh
huge.
yeah. Mhm.
And maybe especially for people that work in schools like I was in, small independent schools where there is a lot of flexibility for students, and in a lot of ways that's great to have individualized plans for students who maybe need accommodation, but sometimes bending the rules creates an inequitable environment. So those
And
are
kind
some
of
of
by
the things.
definition, right?
Yes, yeah.
That always worries me when I give a student when a student asks me for special permission to do something. What about the student who turned in a halfway done paper because they didn't know that they could just ask for more time?
Yes. And not everyone feels empowered to ask that question.
No, it gets back to this notion of a hidden curriculum. Or, do the best grades go to the most entitled? That's, I think, exact opposite of what most of us want to do.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and
I
that's why we suggest changing so many rules, right? If you're going to if those are the de facto rules, you might as well write them down and make them true for everyone.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So, what are you sort of pulling out of the book now that might make it into some of the work that you're doing in Santa Cruz?
I mean, I read and reread it constantly as I was preparing, so it's harder for me to pick out a specific because it's so heavily highlighted and annotated. Um, I think one message that I would like to broadcast to all of Santa Cruz, but UC Santa Cruz in particular, is just to read a quote from 155. Mentally prepare yourself for your own resistance to change, which can sneak up on even the most open-minded teacher. And I would just say educators in general, we could get attached to traditions and routines, and sometimes we have to be uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
and make changes. And right now, so many people are uncomfortable because Gen AI is dominating so many discussions in education. And I would never tell someone to make changes just to make change. Like, we don't all have
Yeah.
to embrace AI, as many of us are being told to. But we should be prepared to consider different perspectives and change the way that we're doing things if we're finding that something's not working. Like if we're teaching online and we're getting a lot of instances of academic misconduct, something probably needs to shift.
Yep. Yeah. Bemoaning the situation never really solved anything. Right?
Hmm.
At some point, we have to make these decisions. I agree with you. I think change is really hard. My wife likes to say, and I think she's probably right. People don't fear change; they fear loss.
Yes.
And so, any change will come with giving something up to get something. That's kind of what it means. And so, I think we often focus on what we're losing and not enough on what we're getting.
Yes.
And
And it
partly
can
because we don't
be
exactly know what it is.
and it can be really hard to voluntarily give things up when we feel like other things are being taken from us.
Hmm.
Again, not to make it all about AI. It's not all about AI, but it can feel like AI is taking things from us in education, which can make it
Yeah.
harder to be flexible or shift in other ways. Because we're like, I'm already losing this. I let me cling to this. So it's
Yeah, and I think if there's a lesson from the book in that is that go with it when things are changing and figure out how to build something, use it as an opportunity to build something new.
yes.
Yes, it's by under duress, and no one really wants that. But sometimes you need to lean into it in order to get past it to a place where you get back to integrity.
And I think every educator can point to something they used to do that now they're like, oh, I'm so glad I left that in the past. That was a mistake and I'm doing it better. So
Oh
surely
yeah.
we're going to be doing that 5, 10 years from now about things we're doing now.
I mean, I hope that's true, but I actually don't see a lack kind of reflectivity in all sectors of higher ed. I think there's a lot of folks who are trying their absolute best to do the least amount of work possible on their courses. And that means change only when required to.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is true. That seems really boring to me.
Yep. Well, it is boring, and I think the goal is just to get past as quick as possible to get to the fun parts of the job. That's what happens when you create an institution that's designed for research with teaching as the secondary effect of it. You're going to get people who don't really want to be teaching, and that's fair enough. I don't
Yes.
actually blame them for this role. I think that when all of the incentives are aligned towards not
Yeah.
teaching well, you'd be silly to say, I'm gonna be Don Quixote tilting against these windmills so that
Hmm.
I can do this because they didn't come into it to do this, and B, they're being punished for doing it.
Yeah. And that's that kind of attitude, which yeah, I agree with you. It's present everywhere. But it's another reason I'm grateful for my background in K through 12 at a small independent school where teaching was like our shining product. And a lot of people don't like to admit that that can be a product, but private school, you're paying for something. And
Yep,
so teaching was the big thing we were selling, which meant we were very encouraged to innovate and change things and be excited about our classes so that our students could be excited. And I feel like that needs to be the case in higher ed too. Easier said than done.
absolutely. Especially since a lot of faculty are contingent and they don't feel like they can have a bad semester or they're going to lose their job.
Yeah.
And in fact, they might even
Yeah.
be right. Being tenured means I can try something in class, and I have, that absolutely doesn't work. And I shrug my shoulders and say, well, I wish it had, but it hadn't. So what am I going to do differently? But you have a semester like that as an adjunct, and you're looking for a different adjunct role.
Yes. We always thank faculty for writing to us, asking questions, reporting, but especially adjunct faculty or maybe someone that's just teaching one section of something. We know they're putting themselves out there to act when they suspect academic misconduct. And it would be a lot easier probably for them to just keep their head down and not engage with it. And I'm so grateful that we're seeing more and more people engage.
Agreed. In the context of that risk, what would you tell an instructor or an instructional designer or someone who is wanting to do some things that maybe push the envelope a little bit, but not completely radically? Some of the things you are recommending to faculty now?
Well, I'll admit that I mostly the recommendations to faculty come from the director of the office. I'm mostly talking to students, but when people ask me, my top suggestion is prioritize in-person connection and communication, conversation, um, just those communication skills, having moments where you have students completely put away their devices. There is one class happening on campus right now, and I get to walk by the discussion sections throughout the day, and it's clearly a no device class, and I have never seen more engaged students in that room. And I think a lot of faculty will find that students are grateful for that, for those moments when they are forced to do things that are a little uncomfortable. Still feel safe. You have to make sure your classroom environment is safe for that communication. But students want it. They're hungry for it. They're tired of just looking at screens all the time and typing.
Yeah, I think that that's great advice for us. You're reflecting what I think you're hearing from students, if I'm right, and that's really invaluable to those of us who don't get the opportunity to talk to our students as much as we'd like to.
Mhm. Yeah, I
So,
had, oh, yes.
no, no, you go.
I was just going to say, I had my seminar students write themselves a letter by hand in the last meeting that we're going to keep and mail out in a year. And I was surprised, one, that they didn't have experience addressing a letter. So I'm going to have to teach them how to do that next quarter. But two, they were really grateful for the chance to do that, to just write to themselves by hand. And I expected that there would be some complaint about, like, this is hurting. I don't usually do this. There was none. They were really happy to do that. So again, that's what the students are wanting, even if they don't feel like they can say it, or maybe they don't even know that that's what they're wanting.
Yeah, I believe you. As we wrap up, what do you think that you have learned from building the seminar and these other education experiences about responding to misconduct for either for other folks in a similar role to yours, or to administrators who don't have a role like yours, or to people in the classroom?
Um, One thing that I already believed, but I feel like is a belief that gets underlined, highlighted every day, is that this work really matters. Responding to academic misconduct matters. And anything that we can do in that response to make a student feel seen is going to make the outcome better. Even if, like, seeing them just means acknowledging you made a bad choice, you were also really stressed. I see that. I'm going to connect you with this resource office. You made a bad choice, and part of that was because you just weren't prepared for this level of class. So let's connect you with learning support services. People want to be seen and acknowledged, and that's really basic, but it comes through in every meeting with students. They appreciate that.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And I think it's a good call to action for all of us in education, but post-secondary in particular. This widget factory model that we're trying to put together to create efficiency has done that, but at a really important human cost.
Yes. And I think doing something is better than doing nothing. If all that your campus can do right now is create something that can be clicked through online, that's something.
Hmm.
But the more that we can prioritize human connection as part of this process, the better.
I completely agree, and I think that the NESE, or the National Study for Student Engagement, second provides data that supports this. Students find the most impactful things in their experience. Often, many of them are things that bring them in contact with other people.
Yeah.
So, Jessa, thanks so much for sitting in this conversation. It's great to get a chance to talk. I learned a lot about your experience from your experiences, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, David. I love your book.
Thank you.